This episode is sponsored by MJ's Progress Not Perfection Meeting Center Association. We are in our meeting center where we do all these meetings for mental health and addiction. I can do this podcast anywhere. I can do this at home. I can do this in a closet. I can do this in a basement. It doesn't matter. All I need is somebody else to talk to about addiction and recovery. What I can't do from anywhere is help people with their addiction and their mental health problems. So if you can help out, we do have a Venmo, we have a Cash App, we have a PayPal, we have an address you can send a check to, and all the money that gets donated goes towards rent, goes towards keeping the lights on, and goes towards keeping the internet on. So please, if you can give $5, $10, $20, it doesn't matter. Anything you can is so appreciated. And if you are a local business, if you're a national business, whatever, and you want to be a part of what we're doing, you can reach out to me and we can talk about how you can be a sponsor. But I'll let you get back to the episode.
Welcome to the show, Sarah. I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So you're in recovery. We met through the TikTok recovery community, which is way bigger than I thought.
I know. No, it's huge. I have so many friends on TikTok just in the past couple months that I don't know. I never expected that.
I started it only because, the podcast here, that I do, and I post, clips to promote, new episodes there. And at first I would just post them and then go, you know what I mean? Facebook is where I was getting a lot of people to watch the episodes, in the group. So I was like, oh, I'm just dropping them and leaving. And then I started seeing other people's posts. And I was like, oh, you know what? Oh, shit. I can actually probably pay more attention to this. And I've seen a lot of cool creators on there. What is your sober date?
My sober date is February 25th, 2020.
How old were you when you checked into rehab? And did you go because you were asked to go, or did you want to go?
So I was 22. I'm 24 now. So I knew I had a problem. I wasn't denying that I had a problem at this point. I wasn't trying to hide it anymore. I was kind of asking for help without asking for help. Enabled my mom and manipulated her for years, and she was finally starting to see through my shit. And yeah, she did give me an ultimatum. I had moved back into her house, so I was totally mooching off of her, just taking advantage. And I had nowhere else really to go except living in my car, and I was driving a coupe at the time. And so she told me, you either go to rehab for 30 days or you leave. I can't have you here anymore. And so my thought process was, okay, I'll go to rehab for 30 days and then just, come back and do what I was doing. I'll just go to shut her up and make her happy. That's kind of what I did. And I got there and I detoxed and it was horrible.
So now you're 22 going to rehab. When did you start, drinking and using drugs?
So I started drinking and smoking weed when I was around 15, 16. I know 15 was the first time I ever got drunk. It was at my high school boyfriend's house on the second floor, and I didn't know that you're not supposed to mix wine, liquor, and beer. And I did all of those things, and his parents were having a party in the backyard, and I threw up over the balcony onto them. So that was my first time getting drunk.
What changed for you that, you were going to using drugs instead of drinking? You know what I mean? What were you trying to escape something? Was there a reason that you were feeling the need to escape like that?
Yeah. So that high school boyfriend I was talking about, so he was, he was very abusive. We were both abusive. I don't want to sit here and say that I played the complete victim because, I'd hit him back. I brawled with him,
Mm-hmm.
That was kind of my introduction into dating. So I had a really twisted idea of what a relationship was. And I thought all the jealousy and the toxic and the abuse and, the screaming matches and all that. I kind of thought that was normal in a young relationship. But when that ended was a few months after I graduated high school, and I met this really nice boy. He was very nice, but he was older than me, but he sold oxys, and I didn't know anything about any of that stuff. I had
Oxys or like the blues?
the blues.
Okay, Roxy 30s.
Yeah, Roxy's.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
No,
Yeah,
no.
Roxy.
It just I was thinking about how old you were. I'm like oxys.
Yeah,
But yeah,
yeah,
I forgot that everyone calls them oxys. I was just telling somebody that earlier. I forget who I was telling it to, that like they say oxy, but they mean Roxy.
yeah,
It's
Roxy.
it's
Yeah,
so funny. Yeah. Okay. But anyway, so yeah, he was selling Roxys, which were
yeah.
huge 5-6 years ago. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like
And
they were.
that's about what the time frame when it was. But he knew somebody in his family who got a prescription because they were in a really bad accident, years and years and years ago. But they didn't really use them, and that was their way of helping him, like supporting him financially, because he was supposed to sell them and keep the money and use the money for food and rent and whatever. But over time, it turned into us just using it all and not selling them at all. He actually didn't want me to try it. He told me, he's like, it's really addictive. He would use them like occasionally. I don't know. I was definitely more of like a gimme, 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 like I need it now kind of than he was. And he
Did you
sold 12.
see how high he was getting and just be like almost like curious of
Yeah.
I wonder what that feels like.
Yes, I was very curious. So he was a pizza delivery boy on the side. He sold to all of our friends, and at this time we were kind of living in this like just fucking ghetto like party house. And all of our friends would come over, and we'd all like hang out and drink or whatever we were doing. And but they would all be using the Roxys, and he didn't want me to try them. And he was gone one day, and he was at work, and my friends were all doing it, and I was like, hey, can I try? Like I want to know. And they're like, no, listen, he'll be really mad. Like, no, oh my God, no, just don't tell him, I'm letting you try it. And I tried it, and I was immediately obsessed. I that's all I wanted. Like my brain no longer focused on anything else in my life or cared about anything else in my life except for that. And I immediately, when he got home from work, like my friend was like, don't tell him, please don't tell him, like I let you try it. I didn't even care. The second he got home, I was like, where are they?
Now,
And
did you sniff it the first time? You had
yeah,
to have. If you were getting that kind of effect right away, you had to have snorted it.
yeah, no, immediately we're snorting them, yeah.
Yeah, and so I could totally see that reworking of the brain, like because that's how I felt, and I talked
Mhm.
about it in my episode about me, where I immediately was like, oh my God, you are my first love. You know how they
Yeah,
always say you get three in your life. I have my third. I'm married to her, but I always say that was my first. And
yeah.
I even did a TikTok about my breakup song, was slow dancing in a burning room, when I was in rehab. But I had to have like a real true breakup to
Mm,
Roxy's, because for nine
yeah,
and a half years, for almost a decade, that's what I was obsessed with. 21 to
yeah.
31. So like you got out. I wish I could have been 22 like you. And and getting into a rehab and doing it right. I was only a year into my decade long of like love affair with them. And I talk about them so much on here because if I don't talk about it, then it rattles around in my head.
Yeah.
If I don't talk about triggers out loud, then those triggers stay in my head, and that's the kind of shit that makes you relapse. So
Oh,
people
totally.
have asked me like, why do you get so candid about like what you talk about? It's almost like, you're like you have like a love affair with it. Like I did. I
Yeah.
loved them. They were a
Yeah.
part of my life. And I
Mm,
need to talk about those things, because if I don't talk about them, then I don't make things real, and I'm not running my honest recovery.
Yeah.
And if I don't talk about these things, then they get rattled up here, and that's the kind of stuff that makes me think way too much and makes me want to relapse. But when I talk
Yeah.
about them, I don't want to relapse. That's why I
Yeah.
talk about it.
Yeah.
So, I find it important to have these kind of conversations. Now, when he comes home, how pissed is he that like you just got high? Or is he relieved that he wasn't there and now he can do it more?
I think it was like a little bit of both. I was really high that night, so I don't really remember much of what, like, how his reaction was. I just know that he showed me. And so over time, it turned into me helping him sell them, me starting to control them. And after a while, I wasn't even letting him sell them anymore. I was making him split them down the middle with me. Every time he got more, I was like, where's my half? Which was like complete bullshit. Like, me, I'm so entitled. Like, oh, fucking give me half. Like,
And he was older, you said?
not like crazy older. I was 18. He was probably like 22, 23.
Okay. But still,
Yeah.
like, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. So, I was
You
very
knew what
much,
you were doing.
yeah, I knew what I was doing, and I knew that I kind of like had control over him. And so, like, the abuse kind of, so like talking about the abuse of my high school relationship, I kind of turned into the abuser. For a few relationships after that, not like physically, but very much so verbally and emotionally. I would manipulate these men into like giving me what I wanted.
Was it
And then,
almost like out of self-defense because you didn't want to have happen to you what happened to you before?
yeah, I mean, that could very well be part of it. I think that I also kind of developed this like entitlement too from it. So a big part of my story too is just men in general. Um, and how, so Roxy's were not the end of my story. Um, so kind of how my story worked is with a new guy came a new drug. Because my boyfriends were my supply. And once one would leave, I wouldn't have that supply anymore, and I would find something else. Um, so after things went south with him,
How long
he,
did it last with him with doing the Roxy's?
I want to say about 8 months.
Okay.
About 8 months ish. We lived together.
I was gonna say you're living together for majority of it. Usually those kind of relationships they happen really fast overnight. You go from meeting to living together within 3 days.
Yes, that's exactly how it happened.
And
I
it's not
was,
like US mail knows and they're sending the mail in the right way, but all your shit that you need on a daily basis, including
yeah,
the 5 pairs of clothes that you're going to interchange over a 7-day span,
yeah,
that's all you ever need is that small bag to move
yeah.
in with a guy.
And
So, because
hmm
I've had my share of people moving in with me. I get it. Like I lived in a shed once. I lived in my parents' shed, and still a girl moved in with me that was getting high. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like
mhm,
somebody I knew from high school needed a place to crash and slept on the futon. Where I slept, and we didn't even hook up or anything. It wasn't a sexual thing.
yeah,
It was, just two addicts that were helping each other out.
yeah.
So I get it. So now you break up with this dude. Was it you broke up or was it him?
I broke up with him because I don't know if you know. So we were living in Ventura. That's where I met him.
This episode is sponsored by MJ's Progress Not Perfection Meeting Center Association. We are in our meeting center where we do all these meetings for mental health and addiction. I can do this podcast anywhere. I can do this at home. I can do this in a closet. I can do this in a basement. It doesn't matter. All I need is somebody else to talk to about addiction and recovery. What I can't do from anywhere is help people with their addiction and their mental health problems. So if you can help out, we do have a Venmo, we have a Cash App, we have a PayPal, we have an address you can send a check to, and all the money that gets donated goes towards rent, goes towards keeping the lights on, and goes towards keeping the internet on. So please, if you can give $5, $10, $20, it doesn't matter. Anything you can is so appreciated. And if you are a local business, if you're a national business, whatever, and you want to be a part of what we're doing, you can reach out to me and we can talk about how you can be a sponsor. But I'll let you get back to the
I don't know if
episode.
you know where Victorville is, but this is where my story gets bad. Victorville, California is where I moved. Apple Valley area too. So we were living, me and that guy, we were living in this like party house, trap house, whatever, I don't know you want to call it. It was just really crazy. And we had an opportunity to rent a place up in Victorville area. Knowing nothing about Victorville, we were like, oh yeah, let's do it. So we moved up there, and like a few months later, things just got really weird. You know, he didn't like get another job. I was like kind of just paying all the rent, and I was getting really frustrated. It was a really small space too. And I was
what is up with Victorville? What's up with Victorville that, I don't know about, or the audience wouldn't know about? Like, if you're not from California to know what Victorville is, what's the stigma? What's the stigma?
So Victorville is, it's in the middle of the desert. It's on the way to Vegas. It's kind of just like buttfuck nowhere. You have Victorville, Hesperia, and Apple Valley, and then nothing around it. It's just like for miles and miles and miles. And it's really hot, like really hot in the summer, really, really cold in the winter. And, you know, it was a nice town 20 years ago, but it is where a lot of, there's just a lot of drugs there. There's a lot of poverty there.
Is it like Bakersfield?
It is. It's
like
kind of
Bakersfield's like a lot of like meth, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's
like crank, biker crank and shit. Yeah.
Yeah.
I knew people from rehab from Bakersfield. I knew like 4 different people from rehab from Bakersfield, and they were all there for meth.
Yeah. So yeah, Victorville. Yeah, it's similar to Bakersfield.
And what are you doing for work when you're paying the rent all by yourself? When dude just like not doing shit.
I was working at Target actually.
Okay.
I worked there like this whole time. I had been working at Target. I got a job right out of high school, and I worked at Target for years, a few years actually.
Did you ever? Well, I mean, and I can take this out. Did you ever like take any cash as like a cashier when you were like on Roxy's?
I actually didn't. No.
Oh, because you were with the dude that had them.
Mm-hmm. I was getting him for free, so I really had no need.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and I was and I never really had any need. I was getting high like at work every day though,
Yeah.
But
so now you're in Victorville. Are you still getting high when you're there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're still getting high. We're having our Connect like mail them to us when we're up there. But yeah, things went really south. I ended up kicking him out because it was my family who was renting us this place. Once again, I felt, it was kind of like an entitlement thing, kind of messed up. I did not really give him much of a notice. I kind of just kicked him out. But it turned out really great for this guy because he actually ended up joining the military and he's doing really well. So, I mean, pat on my back. I'm just kidding. No, but
well, at least they got him. At least they got him sober. It could have been, you know what I mean? Like it could have been way worse. Well, you know what I mean. Yeah. At least At least he's not still like in trap houses with a bunch of random people.
Yeah. At least I don't think so. But yeah, I think he's doing a lot better, which is but yeah, and then I immediately go to the next boy I meet, So like I definitely had a problem with men, and it wasn't like me just it wasn't so much like sleeping around constantly. It was just like I always had to have a boyfriend. That was what it was. I always had to I was codependent and lonely, and I needed somebody to like take care of me pretty much.
Now you say you meet somebody else. Now, how do you meet this somebody else? Was he a new dealer? Then you're just like kind of shacked up like?
No, actually, I met him at Target. So that was the real shitty part about breaking up with. I was called him military boy.
Yeah, it's fine.
But he, once we broke up, my supply was cut off, and we had moved up there, and I didn't know anybody, so I didn't know how to get it anymore. So I went through some pretty, painful withdrawals, like for about a week or two. I felt like shit, but I met this other guy at work at Target, and he was even older. He was like, it was so bad. I was probably 19 at this time, and he was, I think, like 32. And we were just drinking and smoking weed now. So, taking a step back and just kind of, I guess in my brain, it was a little bit more harmless.
Yeah, I mean, both technically are legal in the state of California. I mean, not for you. Both are not legal for you regardless, but they're both legal for him to have at least.
Yeah. So, yeah.
You're not sniffing pills off of tables and shit. You know what I mean? So, it's better.
It's harmless in the eyes of the law.
Yeah.
But, once again, like, that relationship didn't last more than about 6 or 7 months. Maybe 8, I don't know, about that time. And I was living with him in his house, and things went south. And, I had dogs. I have dogs. But I had dogs this whole time. I had these 2 dogs that I fucking love. They've been with me since the very start of my addiction. But I don't know if you're a dog lover, but
yeah, I am. We have 5 in my family.
Yeah, I love dogs, and this guy like threatened them, and so I took off so quick. But and they ever since then they've been living with my mom, but my poor mom.
My parents had my dog. When I went to rehab, I gave my parents my dog, and I was close to suicide a bunch of times, and every time I didn't do it, it was because I didn't know what was going to happen to my dog.
Yeah.
So when I went to rehab, I needed my dog to go somewhere. So my parents, they took her in. They have a dog the same age, a black lab, and they're both 9, and well, they were like 7 at the time. My parents have a fenced-in yard. My mom feeds them like eggs every morning with their dry food. So, and plus my brother has, and they all live together. My brother and my parents live with my brother and, his wife, and they have 2 dogs, a golden retriever and a chocolate lab. So I didn't take my dog back because has a happier life with the other dogs. And I'm in an apartment with 2 cats. She would hate her life.
Yeah.
So, she served her purpose for me. Now she can live out her years with my parents and have a yard to run around in and eggs every morning for breakfast and shit and get all that kind of stuff. So no, I love dogs. Yeah, I totally get it. So now I totally, so he would threaten them instead of threatening to hit you, he would threaten to hit the dogs. And he may as well threaten to hit you.
He threatened to open up the gate and let them loose. Now, so literally a few weeks prior to this, he was in a car accident I was at work, and he was in a car accident with my dogs in his back seat, and with the windows down, and they were frightened, and so they both jumped out the window and bolted. And I get a call while I'm at work, someone saying that they have one of them, and I had no idea what was going on. Long story short, he's dealing with the accident. I get the one. But the other one, he's like a really anxious dog, and 8 hours looking for him in the middle of the desert. And I finally found him. I was about to give up. It was horrible. It was like one of the worst nights I've ever had in my life, because I just have like such a strong emotional connection with this dog. And I finally got him back. But then like 2 weeks later, this dude's like mad at me, and he's like, "Oh, I'm going to let your dogs out again." And I'm like, "Fuck you. No, you're not. I'm leaving." Like, no way. So yeah, that's what happened. My dogs moved around from like, certain family members that are jumping around, and then my mom like finally agreed to take them, and they've been there with her ever since. She has a yard and fenced in yard and bigger place. So they're happy for sure.
That's what matters,
Yeah.
at the end when it comes to being in sobriety. You have more appreciation for what they did then to be like, no, this is what they need now.
Yeah.
So okay, now where are we in your story?
Okay, so we are
You
at
you leave this dude with your dogs.
yeah. So my dogs, I wasn't ready. I wasn't about to go move in with my mom, but my dogs did. So I didn't want to because I wanted to keep running rapid, I wanted, or whatever the phrase
And
is.
you were like 20 years old, right?
I was probably like just about to turn 20. Yeah, I was probably around that age. Um, but I actually moved in with my manager. My friend, she offered me the spare room in her apartment to rent. So I moved in with her and her boyfriend. And me and her were like really close, and so I thought it would be great, but no, 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 don't ever move in with your friends. So her boyfriend, I don't know if he had like a thing for me or what, but like she would get really mad if we'd be like alone in the apartment together at all. Like if she had to work, even if I was in my room and he was like in their room, it was just like really awkward. It got really awkward really fast. And she like felt the need to get me a boyfriend, I think, because she was like really insecure about her. I had no interest in her boyfriend. I don't know if he maybe had interest in me. I don't know, but
She either saw him looking at you a certain way one time, or he at one point made an offhand suggestion of you two ever hooked up, maybe like a three, you know what I mean? He probably did something to where she was like, I don't trust you, and I'm not going to put it in her head and tell her why I don't trust him because
yeah,
I don't want her to get it in her head. So instead, I'll just get her a boyfriend to distract her.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So they set me up with one of his friends, so her boyfriend's friends, and he had just gotten out of a relationship, like literally a few weeks prior, like a long relationship. So that should have been my, immediate like red flag, don't do it. But
It was not.
it was not. They introduced me to him, and oh my god, I was like, oh my god, he's so cute. He was like this little gangster boy. I thought he was like the cutest thing ever. This dude fucking ruined my life, man. Oh my god.
And you probably knew it from the start that it was gonna happen.
I knew it from the start. And this is when I was introduced to cocaine. And cocaine is what? So my roommate, the female, she was at work and she was against drugs. She did not like drugs. You could drink, you could smoke weed. Okay. She was against anything but like weed and alcohol.
Yeah, she didn't consider them drugs. She didn't
Yeah.
consider anybody outside of NA really doesn't consider alcohol a drug. Let's be real. And I mean, anybody that's going to NA considers alcohol a drug.
Exactly.
And you know what I mean? And nobody really considers weed a drug anymore, period. So
No, I know. And it's totally, but I mean,
no, but
yeah.
I know what you mean. But she's not cool with coke and pills and dope and
Yeah. So she's at work, and like a few, I felt like really awkward because here I am hanging out with her boyfriend and like my new soon to be boyfriend and like a few of their friends, and they're like, one of them, brings out a baggie, and I'm like, they're like, have you ever tried this before? And I was like, no, like I tried other, like I've snorted like things before for sure, but I've never tried cocaine. And but like my like, ooh, I get to snort something, like wait, like I don't know, I was like so excited because like I was like finally I get to do something again, because like I had just been drinking and smoking weed this whole time. Because like I didn't know anybody with any sort of like connection, and I was like, fuck yeah. And so I snorted it, and once again I fell in love and I became super obsessed, and I was like, give me more, and they were like, oh my god, chill. And I was like, no, I want more. It was an instant obsession. And this boy, I ended up moving in with him after like 2 weeks. I like moved out of my this girl's place. I was like, fuck you, bye. And I moved in with him, and I lived there for like a year and a half. And I was snorting coke every day, all day. And I spent every single dime I had on it. Every single dime, because that shit's expensive. Okay.
Were you working still?
I was working still. I was working just to support my habit. And up there, it's cheaper. Well, at least than in like Ventura County and stuff. It was cheaper up there. But I spent every dime I had on it. And I was obsessed. There was not a single day that went by that I didn't use it. And I dropped down to 85 pounds. Yeah, I will tell you how much I weigh right now is 130. If you can, I'm 5'7". I was like paranoid as hell. I was like being watched on like my socials and stuff. And I was like, I don't.
We were doing different drugs at the time though. That's why, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
You know, Coke has a little more paranoia attached to it than, you know, Roxy's.
Big time.
Roxy's is more depression.
Oh, yeah. But...
Roxy's is more depression, like, fuck it. If they take me, they take me. You know? And then Coke's like, where they, you know, and you're freaking out the entire time.
Are they watching me through that whole
yeah. So it's a little bit different. So is he doing Coke the entire time with you?
So, okay, yes, he is, but he like totally made me feel like I was like I was the fiend, but he was like, you need to slow down, man. Like, what the fuck? Like, why are you always like wanting this shit? And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Of course I want this shit. Like, give me more. Okay, so yeah, we used like every single day together for.
Was he much older also, like the 32 and 19 difference? Or?
Like, so I was like 20 at this time. I think he was maybe 22.
Okay, so he was closer to you.
He was closer to my age, yeah.
Okay.
He was also a horrible alcoholic, like at the time too. Like he would drink like 30 beers a day while also doing the Coke with me, and it was. Ugh.
But it seems more like your objective was to do Coke, but also have some beers with it. And his was, I'm going to drink beer and have a little Coke with it. Yeah.
So exactly. So I was doing like most of the Coke. He was drinking more. And so this was routine for us for a while. And, you know, up in Victorville, there's literally nothing to do. So our fun was we would take our baggies to the bowling alley with a bunch of friends, and we would just, you know, bowl and do Coke all night. That was just like what we did. Or if, you know, or we would just stay up all night in his room, and it was just horrible. But yeah, that time in my life was like, it got really dark. You know, he was like cheating on me constantly, and, you know, he was really mean to me too. He was very abusive. And yeah, I don't know. Things got really dark with that one.
Yeah, Coke and alcohol will make it dark real quick. And you know, if that went on for a year and a half, did that take you into what rehab was, or were you?
No.
Okay, so how did you leave him?
Sorry, like a year. Okay, my timeline's like messed up.
No, it's fine. Yeah, and it doesn't have to be exact. I mean, we're piecing it all together. So when you left him.
So I didn't leave him right away. So what actually happened was, I knew I had a problem. Obviously, I had a problem, and, you know, I was starting to get really sick. I looked so ill. People at my job were saying so many different things about me, like all these rumors about me. I looked horrible. My spine was sticking out of my back. My cheekbones were sunken in. My ribs were sunken in. It looked like if you touched me too hard, I would break into dust. That's what I looked like. And one night I was like having a really, I don't know if I think I don't know. I did too much, like way too much. And I was like, I was having a panic attack, and I went into the bathroom, and what I would always do when this would happen is I would like take a shower, and I would do hot and then cold and then hot and then cold, like shock myself out of it. And I get out, and I was doing that, and I get out of the shower, and I'm like looking at myself in the mirror naked. I know that I was looking at myself naked, and I was like crying. I was like, oh my God, like, look at me. Like, I'm not, like, that's not hot. Like, that's not pretty. Like, what are you doing to yourself? And I kind of had this moment where I told myself I needed to make a change. And so I decided in that moment I was going to move back home with or without my boyfriend at the time and go back to school. So I put in my 2 weeks. I got my payout for like all my vacation and sick time over the years. I spent it all on cocaine and did it all. And then that was it. Oh, I went back to Ventura. The boyfriend came with me. And that was it. No more cocaine. I mean, I had no more cocaine every day. All right. So, I
Where
moved
did
back.
you two live? Your mom?
Yeah. So I moved in with my mom. I like made a deal with her. I told her I want to go to school. I want to get my shit together. She had no idea what I was doing up in the desert. She had no idea I was doing any of this stuff.
But what about how you looked?
Yeah, so she knew that I wasn't doing well. I told her that I thought I was sick. So my dad though knew. My dad never confronted me about it, but he was very pissy with me, and he knew that I was doing something naughty. But my mom's more naive, and I was able to manipulate her better, which I hate myself for now. But I was able to convince her that I was like really sick, or there was something wrong with me, like I needed to go to the doctor or something.
Or you the only girl?
No, I had a younger excuse me. I have a younger sister. She's very much so, like, she's very straight edge. Very straight edge. She, I think, has smoked weed a few times.
Well, so that makes sense that why wouldn't your mom believe you then,
Yeah, there was never, I was I was her oldest, and,
Had your dad been through any programs or other rooms at all for him to recognize it, or he just knew something was off?
He just knew something was off. And I think that he had been around more of a party scene in college and stuff, like, to know that that's not normal, just my behaviors. And I think he was catching me in some lies. So I think
it happens.
yeah. So moving with my mom, the boyfriend came with me. And this is when I turned into a horrible alcoholic. I went to school. I went to cosmetology school. I got licensed, passed state board, everything. But I was drinking so much with him, with my boyfriend and all my friends. And that was all I was doing. I was drinking liquor, just straight liquor, straight whiskey, like just so much of it. And then, me and this boyfriend, we broke up, got back together a couple times. And then I had, over the course of this year-ish, where I'm in school, I graduate. I don't remember. It's crazy. It's like it's like a very distant memory. But we're very on and off. We break up kind of one time for good, I guess. And I got really depressed, and I was drinking a 750 plus a night to myself in my room in the dark. Just getting so shit-faced. And that's when I started taking Xanax with it. And that's when things got really ugly and gross.
That was the worst part. I always say that Xanax was the worst part of my addiction.
It was the worst part because yes, like with the cocaine, I lost a lot of weight and I did get very sick and I was very sneaky. And then with the, with the Roxys, I got out of control a little too. But with the alcohol and the benzos, I could not control myself. I could not.
Did you steal?
I stole. I lied.
But it's mostly blackout, right?
I was black. I don't remember. Like, I don't remember anything except for what I have in my Snapchat history. Really, like, bits and pieces other than that. From these, like, last 5 months of my using. Me and that boy had broken up. I was introduced to Xanax. I was drinking a 750 bottle of liquor and taking a bunch of Xanax every day. I was blacking out.
Who introduced you to Xanax?
A boy.
And you were probably like, "Oh, cool, $5 a pill. This is way cheaper than anything I've ever been doing."
Yeah. Yes.
This isn't a big deal. These must not be that bad for me if they're only $5.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I loved how cheap they were, and
little did you know that $5, all of a sudden, yeah, maybe it's $20 a day, but you forget that entire day for $20.
Yeah. Yeah. And so this boy that introduced me to them, we had a lot of fun. From what I can remember, we had a lot of fun together. We had the same car. We both drove a BRZ, Subaru BRZ, and we met at a car meet. And yeah, we would just drive around. We'd drive up to Big Bear. We'd go to LA. We'd like do all this fun stuff. From what I can remember, it probably wasn't as fun as I remember, but whatever, and he didn't have like a problem though. Like he introduced it to me, but he would like do them every once in a while. It was just like oh hey, like you want to like do these this night? And I was like, yeah, I think I actually knew. I was the one who knew the dealer though, and I was just like, yeah, I know this guy who like sells them. I'll get us some, and
So he didn't know how often you were doing them though, because you weren't living with them. So you were doing them more when you were by yourself, and drinking is now. Nobody really knew how much you were drinking then, it sounds like.
No. Oh God, no. Nobody knew how much I was drinking.
Except for the person that was selling you the liquor every day.
Yeah, exactly. The liquor store boy who I also dated for a minute to get free alcohol. It was crazy, man.
I was just going to say, like, did you go to the same place every single day?
There was two. There was two stores I would go to. There was a place in downtown Ventura I would go to when I was down there, and then there was one by my mom's house that I would go to.
This way, did you do that so that they didn't see you every day, so you wouldn't have to feel like...
No, I didn't really care.
Okay. I wasn't sure.
Yeah, I mean, I assumed that they were used to it.
Okay. But you knew that your drinking was, like, not good, though, right?
Yeah, I didn't have a lot of shame, honestly. Like, I still, I mean, I in that moment, like, when I was drinking that much, I didn't have a lot of shame. I didn't really care what people thought of me. But yeah, was hanging out with this boy. I thought he was so dreamy and cute, and he was like this little emo boy. I loved it. Yeah, he just ghosted me eventually. And my like crazy ass, like this is my rock bottom. We're gonna get to my rock bottom. So while I'm like dating this boy, I was assisting at a salon for this really bougie lady. Like she was very expensive, very like high-end salon in downtown Ventura, and I wasn't doing too hot assisting for her because I was going to work on Xanax every day.
And looking like probably a zombie if you're going to work on Xanax. Like, you're literally just like standing there dipping out. Like,
Yeah, I wouldn't really. She'd ask me to do something, and then like 5 minutes later, she'd be like, "Sarah, like, come on, what are you doing?" Like, I asked you
Yeah.
to do. So,
Just drooling on yourself.
yeah. So I was working there. This guy ghosted me, and I knew where he worked. So okay, this is weird because I met him in Ventura, but he actually lived in Victorville. It's so weird. It's so weird how that happened. But I knew where he worked, and my dumbass decided it would be a good idea to go drive 3 hours all the way to his work and sit outside of his work and be like, "Why did you ghost me? Nobody ghosted me." Like, it was so bad. It was so ugly. And yeah, he came out and I confronted him. He's like, "It's not you, it's me." Like, meh, like super, like, "Oh, I'm so depressed. That's why I can't be in a relationship with you." And I'm like, "Yeah, right. You just don't like me because I'm sloppy or something." I don't even know what I said.
Were you on Xanax then too?
Of course I was. Of course I was. And
The 3-hour drive on Xanax.
yes,
That is a
dude.
dicey car ride.
I know. And but I made it. And so we're sitting in the car talking. I'm like, "Ugh, fuck you." And I get out of his car. I go into my car. I'm like crying because this guy like just broke up with me, right? Like pretty much just broke up with me. I'm like crying. I get a ding on my phone. It's from my boss. She goes, "Hi, Sarah. Unfortunately, I don't think it's working out between you and me. You're not progressing as much as I'd like to see you as an assistant, etc., etc. Like, I wish you luck." Fuck me, right? I was so upset. And then, of course, when you're like on Xanax, you get that like Xanax anger. And I punched my steering wheel like 20 times and I broke my hand real bad. And then oh my God. And then my ex that lived in Victorville was right down the street. So I go to his house. I hadn't seen him in like 6 months. And then after that, I don't remember much. So things got really dark.
You had a broken hand
Mm-hmm.
while you were like down there. You were 3 hours from home. You just broke your hand and you didn't have a job to go back to because you just got fired after. Okay. You just got broken up with and then you got fired and then you broke your hand. Now you're high on Xanax and you're 3 hours from home.
Yeah.
So you go to your ex-boyfriend's because it's the closest place that you can get to.
It's the closest place. It felt safe in that moment. Because whenever we had broken up for some period of time, he was always really nice at first, like when I'd come back. So I was like, "Oh, he's going to be like really nice." And he was. And I ended up staying with him for like a week or two.
And is this the older dude that was like considerably older?
Oh, no, this is the one that I did cocaine with. This was the one.
Okay.
Yeah, this was the one that was like a year or two.
Okay, I gotcha.
Yeah.
Not the military boy, but the one after the old dude. Not
Yeah.
old dude, but older dude. Okay. So now you're there for like 2 weeks, and and then you decide to go back home with a broken hand. Did you even get that looked at while you were there?
I did. I got it looked at. I know it was in a cast at some point. I don't even think it ever like fully healed, to be honest, because when I got to rehab, I wasn't wearing a cast. But like I said, I don't really remember anything that happened in this like little bit of time.
Yeah, I mean Xanax is that would do that to your
Yeah.
memory because
Yeah.
when was it you went to rehab obviously in February 2020. When did this occur where you got broken up with and fired and broke your hand?
Like just December or some
Okay,
point.
so you're still 2 months away from going into rehab.
Yeah, maybe like early January, something in there, sometime in there is when it happened. Yeah, and so I start doing the thing with my ex where I'm like driving from Ventura to his house back to Ventura. I'm seeing him sometimes, staying in Ventura sometimes. But when I was in Ventura, when I was at my mom's, I was I was miserable. I was so miserable. I was just isolating in my room in the dark, drinking and taking pills, and it was really gross. It was really gross. My room was disgusting. Yeah, and that's when my mom pulled out that ultimatum, which saved my life.
Now, your situation's really unique because you were early in sobriety when COVID hit.
Mhm. Yes.
So, you were not even getting a 30-day chip when everything was shutting down.
Yeah.
Because I assume they were taking you to meetings from your rehab because, like, I've been to Southern California rehabs. I know that the meetings are filled with rehabs,
Yeah.
and that's the only time you get out of the house is by going to a meeting.
Yes. Yeah.
So now what happens for you now early in sobriety, and all of a sudden they're like, oh yeah, there's no more meetings, because I know LA shut down meetings for a long time.
Yeah. Well, we did them on Zoom. We did. We transitioned completely onto Zoom. So the first 3 to 4 weeks I was in rehab, we were going to meetings in person. And I remember the cook at my rehab. I remember him talking about COVID, and I would like get mad at him. I'd be like, "Oh my God, like stop trying to freak us out. Like that's not gonna happen." Like I was in like denial about it. And I was like really paranoid too. And I was like, "Oh my God, like shut the fuck up." I was like seriously pissed at him.
Well,
for
we're
talking
really
about COVID.
emotional that first 3 to
Yeah.
4 weeks. We're like, our emotions are finally coming out that we've been suppressing for years.
Mm-hmm.
I made 2 different guys cry, you know what I mean, just
Yeah.
from in IOP groups, like, because they said something that I didn't like, so then I made fun of them until they started crying. That was my therapist was running the meetings, both of them. And both times she was like, all right, we got to talk about that next time we have a session. Like, the one dude was pissing me off, and he was like coming off meth, and he was like scary, big dude. So, but I stole the one remote control from the other side of the house. And every time he was watching TV, I would be like hitting the reflection of the remote and turning the volume all the way up and down on him and changing the channel. And he
Oh
was
my God.
freaking out, thinking that like he was in psychosis and there was like a ghost in
Oh
the room.
my
Like,
God.
I was petty as fuck early
Yeah.
in sobriety. So I
Yeah.
totally see how you can be like freaking out on the cook for like mentioning what COVID was going to probably be.
And it was it totally, I mean, obviously it took off. And yeah, I got sober on Zoom for the most part. And then like outdoor meetings kind of became a thing, beach meetings and stuff. And so we started doing those here and there. But yeah, it was mostly on Zoom. Even our IOP groups transitioned to Zoom. Like when I was in PHP, we could not go anywhere. We did not leave because they were too scared to take us anywhere because it was such a new
Yeah,
thing.
that's crazy to think
It's
about,
horrible.
because like the one of the most exciting things was going from detox to sober living, after those 30 days, and now you're in sober living. You transition to sober living and you're going to IOP 4 times a week or whatever for 3 hours. You're like, finally, I can just like walk out the front door and go to 7-Eleven and get some smokes, and I'm allowed to go for this walk, and it's okay that I'm walking and doing my own thing a little bit. And you get that freedom back a little bit within the first couple months. And your situation is different because nobody had freedom when, you know what I mean? Like, either way, you weren't going to have freedom, but now you're newly in sobriety with no freedom too.
Yeah, and I mean when I was new in sober live, like once I got out of PHP into sober living, I was able to, like go like leave and do stuff. But yeah, I was very restricted because of COVID. It sucked. A
Yeah,
lot of
there wasn't, yeah, because even the outdoor meetings, they started back up from what I'm told in like mid-July. It was like still like July, August before the outdoor meetings, at least in LA.
yeah.
I had my friend Jules here. She has a thing called Muck Recovery down in Venice. And it started just like we used to have meetings there every Saturday night in her front yard in Venice. and it wasn't like officially like in the books. And now it is, and they hold 2 meetings a day in that front yard. But you know, because it was because of COVID though that they transitioned to putting outdoor meetings in the books and got her place like on the map, and now it's a huge meeting in Venice every day.
Oh, nice.
So, but most of my tattoos were done in her front yard during those meetings.
Nice.
And it was like so much fun every single Saturday night, get together and, you know, just fuck around just because people want to be sober together. So when did you transition to going to meetings that were like outdoors? Was it like that summertime?
Yeah, I want to say it was around probably summertime. Yeah, it's when the outdoor meetings started opening up, and I was going to, there was this outdoor CA meeting I would go to.
CA out there is amazing. People don't even know what CA is around here.
Really?
Like, I used to go to CA and then go to my friend's house on Saturday nights. I would go to 3 meetings every Saturday night, and CA was I used to go to Compton for a CA meeting every Friday called Fourth Dimension. And that was an awesome meeting because it was by candlelight, so like all the lights were off, and you heard some of the realest and rawest stories that you would ever hear in a CA meeting. So yeah, CA is awesome.
I love that CA meeting. And there was this like duck park meeting that was just like very local that we would go to. There was beach meetings. But you know, for the most part, I was doing most of them still on Zoom because I mean that's what I was used to also because like I got sober with Zoom, so I was pretty comfortable with it. You know, I was secretarying a meeting during that time on Zoom.
Oh, so you must have really enjoyed the whole process of AA then, if you're already secretary in a meeting, even if it's on Zoom, but still like the fact that you wanted to have that responsibility tells me that like you were like inundated with like what the work is right away.
Yeah, I think I started that secretaryship right when I got to 9 months, I want to say. I think it was right when I got to 9 months. Because I think that was the requirement.
Usually it is summer 6 months. It honestly depends on the group. You know, I've seen some meetings where they're like, you got 3 months, we'll let you be secretary, you know, because we need a secretary. And then there's some groups where people were begging to be secretary and they're like, you need a year. How long did it take you before you actually went through the steps, or have you yet?
Yeah, I think I got through them in about 9 months. And then I'm actually doing them again right now. I'm doing sober steps.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it's been really helpful. But yeah, I recommend.
Well, it's helpful because we still have to live life. You know what I mean? We're still having all the same problems, just that we don't. The solution of drinking and drugs is not our solution anymore. So we need to find different ways to, you know. Is there a step that you let me ask you both, that you love and you hate? Like which one? Not hate, but like dread. Like, this step always, you know, takes it out of me.
Step 9.
Nine.
I love step 9, but it's also like so mentally exhausting because, you know, especially the first time you do it, you're bringing up a lot of past things and a lot of like horrible things that you did. And, you know, you have to face it. And I think that it's very, very healing, but at the same time, exhausting.
Yeah. I felt that way about 4. The first time I did a 4, and I had like majority of the list of the reasons I resent myself, you know, and I felt like exhausted by the end of how much I resented myself. I mean, it really made doing a step 8 of writing my list. It really made me writing my list a lot easier because I was able to go, oh yeah, I resented myself for that one. I might as well apologize for that resentment. Let me go through and try to like, you know, weave through. So it really made doing a really thorough 4 makes doing an 8 a lot easier.
Yeah.
You know, and that's something that people almost, you know, the more work you put in early on, the easier the work is as it goes. So, And people sometimes they skip over ones and they think that they're not really important, but like losing your character defects, it can be such a thing of like I get stuck there. Like I've gone through them a few times and
Mm-hmm.
I always get stuck with defects of like manipulation,
Yeah. Yeah.
because as you talked about yourself, how is that for you going from like how am I not going to manipulate my relationships because don't want to have you been in relationships since you've been sober?
Yeah. So, yeah, that's that. I, anybody watching this, don't do this. But I, I had a rehab romance.
Okay,
Uh,
so you didn't do the suggestion of wait 1 year.
no, I didn't. I had a rehab romance, and okay, all of like not all, but a lot of my sponsees have done this. A lot of my friends have done this, and I've never, ever, ever seen it work. But,
It doesn't.
but this one did. We've been together almost 2 years. Now, we live together and everything, and we have a beautiful relationship, but it was really hard. It was hard. And I don't recommend it. I don't recommend it. The first year, like the first 6 months especially, was really hard. I stayed sober. He, had his own journey that, he had his own ups and downs, and
All we
he had
have to say is you met in rehab, but you have different sober dates.
yes.
That's all we really have to.
Yeah,
That
that's it.
ties it up together really easily. I
Mhm.
think I get what you're saying,
Yeah,
as the nicest way possible. He's doing good now. You
great,
both are you go to the rooms together. It sounds like you went to
great.
Georgia together and you
Mhm.
went to meetings down there. So that's really cool. But
Yeah.
yeah, there's the sober like I dated early in sobriety. I started dating around 90 days and
Mhm.
like, Tinder and stuff like that. But every single person I talked to and I met, I would make sure they knew that like I'm early in sobriety. You can
Mhm.
drink, I'm not going to drink, and
Yeah.
it is what it is. And by the way, I'm not ready for a real relationship yet. So
Yeah.
this is like going to be just like getting to know each other and fun
Yeah.
because I am not there yet. And I was just extremely honest and just put it out there like third thing that we're talking like, hey, I'm JD. Oh, you're blah blah blah. Oh, what are you looking for? Relationship? I'm not.
Yeah.
And get it out of the way really early, not to waste anyone's time, just so I wasn't being unfair and I was always just being honest. And then I met my wife that way. That's and I told her, I have a year of sobriety in 3 weeks. I
Mhm.
don't want to get serious at least until I have 1 year, so I can't jinx it now.
Yeah.
But I came back and I proposed. So we went from like friends with benefits to engaged, basically.
Oh, that's
So
sweet.
I get it. No, I get it. And now we're both have the same. And ironically enough, we have the same sober date now.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
So
Yeah, our relationship has blossomed into like a very beautiful thing. Our programs are like we keep our programs completely separate. We do our own thing. We both sponsor. We both have our like people, and dating, like two sober people dating can be really, really beautiful, and it can also be very, very messy. I think it just depends on the personalities and like the work you're willing to put into it.
it
um
depends on how codependent you're being too,
mhm.
So and like you said, if you're doing different things, like say you're going to women's only meetings, and say maybe you're only going to like 1 or 2 meetings a week together, but you're going to 5 or 6 by yourself,
Yeah.
there it needs to be that kind of balance where,
Hmm.
you have at least 2 or 3 meetings for yourself for every
Yeah.
one that you go with him.
Yeah,
You
you definitely can't go to all your meetings together, because we were kind of being bad about that in the beginning, and we were going to a lot of the same meetings, and then when you do that, like for example, if there's things about your relationship that you even just want to talk about in a meeting, like you can't talk about that when they're sitting right there.
Yep.
So yeah, it's definitely nice to keep your programs separate, and that doesn't mean that you can't like bring them together every once in a while too.
That's what I mean. Yeah, there's meetings
Yeah.
that we go to together, and there's meetings that we facilitate separately, and we both feel it's important. This way, not that we want to talk shit on each other, because we don't, but we don't want to be also say something that makes that person like have a hurt feelings or something like that either.
Yeah.
We all deal with our own fucking shit every single day in our head, and we have to be able to talk about it, and we have to be able to talk about it with other people besides our significant others. Because like you had a problem with boys, like you said, where that was who you leaned on at all times. So you have to be able to separate the two now, or else you're falling into old habits.
No, exactly. And I've definitely, it's like that's a huge defect of mine, and it's definitely come out, since we've been together. But it's about, just I lost it.
No, it's fine.
What's the word? Contrary action. Oh my God. I lost I lost the word. I was like, what is it?
Yeah, no, I get now when did you start like creating like fun videos on TikTok? Because like you've had some videos that got like 1 million views, right?
Yeah, oh my God.
Was that like fucking crazy when that like happens? Like, I mean, most I've got is like 4,000. It's like, holy shit, and it was like my rehab sock one, where it was like funny, but like, 1 million, like.
Yeah, so I started making TikToks more frequently once I got out of, so I lived in sober living for like a year until we got our own place, and I recently started making TikToks more frequently, and it was kind of just for me as like a creative outlet, and then also to kind of help other people as well. I liked the idea of putting my story and my experiences out there, because I'm not a very shy person. Like, I don't really care if people, like, I don't really care what people's opinions are of me, whether they're good or bad. So my thinking behind it was, if I can like touch people in a good way, let's do it. And so I started making videos more frequently a few months ago, and I had one that got a few 100,000, something like that, and I was like, oh, like that's cool, like okay, like that's awesome. So then I made that other one like a week or two ago, and it's at like 1.4 million views, which is insane, and I think that that's the coolest thing. And so I'm just gonna keep creating them.
Yeah, and there's gonna be people like, I'm sure when you're getting that many numbers, you have to have some kind of trolls and haters and like comments and shit.
Yeah, I try to make fun of it, like not make fun of them. I try to make fun out of it,
Yeah, you have to.
Yeah, I mean, you're always gonna get that, like I had somebody comment like, oh, I know Molly eyes when I see them. And so I just like made a video with that sound that's like, wow, that's embarrassing. Like, I really hope you're embarrassed.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like, to comment that on the sober page is just kind of inappropriate. But,
No, and that's the thing. And you're going to have, there's people all the time, even going to meetings that are going to ridicule however you're living your life, in sobriety. There, and that's the thing is the people behind the computer or on their phone rather, when they're commenting, they're usually bored and they aren't creators themselves. They aren't people that are posting something, and putting themselves out there. To put yourself out there the way that you do, is not an easy thing to do. It's easier for us because, we don't mind doing it, but it doesn't make it easy still, to have yourself like, somebody asked me the other day, they're like, I can't believe that you're just like, okay, I can't imagine. They're sober. Like, not that they're sober, they're regular, they're normies. They drink, or whatever, but not like alcoholically, but still they deal with their own shit. And they're just like, I can never put my life out there the way that you talk about it like that. I'm like, oh, it's just easy for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm just used to it. I'm used to telling my story, and a pretty open book in the rooms and then also outside of the rooms. You know, if I can help people who have no idea what AA even is just by, you know, talking about it on TikTok, like that's great. If I can maybe like open up a new door for them, because before I went to rehab, I had no knowledge of recovery, like community at all, you know.
No, neither did I. I had no idea what, you know, recovery could be like or anything like that, because I would avoid anybody. Let's be honest. I was avoiding anybody that was in recovery. You know, I didn't want you to like get me into your cult, you know? Like I didn't know.
Yeah, I thought, like, I mean, this is gonna sound so horrible, but I thought that like people who got sober were like quitters. Like that was like my mentality, which is so horrible. Like that's so fucked up. Like people in recovery are literally the strong, like the people I've met in sobriety are the strongest people I've ever met in my life.
We know that now, you know. We know that now.
Yeah,
you know.
But in my, like, you know, in my fucked up pre-sober brain, I'm like, oh, what a quitter. Like, that's mean.
Yeah, and now looking back, you're like, I can't, because now I see it all the time on Facebook. People will post like, there's things like, oh, I'll give you $1 million but you have to go the rest of your life without. I'm like, people in the comments are like, I could never. Like, I'm like, the fuck? Like, I do this for free. I could be getting paid.
Yeah, I know. I saw one of those the other day. Like, you have to give up drinking, weed, or chicken wings. And I was like, fucking weed and drinking, easy. Give me all the wings.
It's, you know, giving up it's not easy, but it's definitely worth it. And the further you get away from it, the easier it does get. Getting through holidays, as soon as you go through one set of holidays, that's the sober one, laughing at the drunk ones, you realize, oh, I definitely don't want to have to go back to that.
Yeah.
You know, and it's really easy because I will sit back and I will laugh now at, you know, Christmas and Thanksgiving and, you know, New Year's. We're going to have a thing here, like I said. So hopefully that'll be fun. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on and talking and telling your story. Like,
having me.
I feel like it's definitely a relatable story to a lot of people.
I hope so. I hope that if anybody can relate to anything in my story, that would be great.
Thank you so much again.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I'll see you. Bye-bye.
Bye.